a deep breath and remember who you are. Yeah, they're gonna mess with you, baby, you're a star. Stepping in the spotlight, you know that it feels like time to put up a fight, honey. Got nothing left to lose, so let's start right now. Everybody want a piece of you. Gotta give them what they want, it's true. You're so funny, yeah, so iconic. If you didn't know before, now you know. Now you know. Take a big step away from who you were. Flashing that smile and the whole world's a blur. Dancing in the limelight, oh you're on in the night.
Do Positively Powerful with Scott and Stacey, back again on Wednesday morning. Good morning, Stacey. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great.
You are always great. Before we get started, I wanted to, say if you're joining us live, be sure to comment or react so we know that you're here. And if you happen to be watching this on the replay, do the same, and we'll respond because we watch these like a hawk. Anyway, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was this idea of meeting people where they are. And it's been a theme that's come up quite a few times recently in the last, say, week in different, completely unrelated conversations that I've had with people. And so that's why yesterday I was like, oh, I think I should pick Stacey's beautiful brain about that. So that's what we're going to talk about. And, my definition of what meeting people where they are means is like you're accepting their current emotional, mental, life circumstances, all of these things, whatever's going on in their lives, without trying to fix them or judge them or anything. You are just literally wherever you are, I am here with you. And that's where we start. Yeah. And I wanted to kind of figure out, just from your perspective, and to some people, the answer is obvious, but to some people, maybe not. Why is that concept so important?
It is important because then you're not trying to impose your wants and needs onto the other person, right? So when we try and fix them or change them without them asking for that, wanting that, then that's actually about you and your wants and needs. And that's where we kind of start playing in this like codependent place, depending on how far on that spectrum is. Hey, Tom, I just met Tom yesterday at a conference.
All right, welcome, Tom.
And it was so much fun. So it's actually really helpful if you can't just accept that that's where the person is at, then, and it's bringing up emotion in you where you're like, I got to fix this, I got to change that, then that's actually really helpful for your own, self-expression or your own self-work and awareness. That's the word I'm looking for.
I know there's a lot of people who, whether intentionally or unintentionally, decide that they, and maybe, a lot of times it comes from a good place. Like, I want to help you. I see that how can I help you? Oh, or, what can I do for you? What can I, all of those things that, that come from a good place, but it's also assuming that person wants help, or that person right. even recognizes the fact that, or recognizes that they need help, or they might even not even think they need help. They might think that everything's hunky dory, and you're like, dude, you're a hot mess. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm a hot mess. And it's like, and it's another concept that comes, that comes in and out of what we're talking about all the time. And it's that idea of projecting, like you just mentioned, projecting your your thoughts, your feelings, your desire, your everything that you want on that person, and expecting
Yes.
them to be that way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And who am I to say what's best for you? Right. Unless if that person wants that feedback from me, you know? And if you start seeing everyone as their own sovereign being with their own responsibility for their life, their own thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and desires, then it's a lot easier to let them do their thing and you do your thing. And even though like my job is literally helping people and supporting their growth and evolution, I merely invite people into that, right? So
Yeah.
there's a choice on that person's part where they get to, when they sign up with me, right? They're consenting to that dynamic to happen. And then I take on, I don't know if that's the right word, take on, but then it's like, okay, well, it's my job. You are hiring me to hold you to a higher standard because you told me you want to be at a higher standard. So I will hold you to a higher standard to support your growth. Right.
Right.
But without that consent, without that dynamic, then it's inappropriate for me to go around doing that with everybody if they haven't consented and signed on to that agreement.
Yeah, and that it's kind of like the idea of some people might think that instead of adjusting their expectations, they're lowering their standards in a way, like, oh, I'm you're this way, this is what I think you should be at. Now I'm not doing myself any justice by letting you get away with this because I think you should be up here, as opposed to asking, why are you there? What's in there that's affecting how I'm seeing you? Or, I mean, it gets real muddy. This is I'm starting to get out of my wheelhouse, or out of my pay grade with this stuff. This is definitely your thing. But I know that in so many conversations that I've had with people at the studio and just, out and about, that idea of trying to understand where they're coming from and understand their perspective on things, and not projecting my own thoughts and ideas on them is kind of like, to me, that's the same thing as meeting people where they are.
Yeah. So the other thing too is you don't need to lower your standards to accept the other person, right? That might mean you have to set a boundary, or that your dynamic with that person changes because they aren't operating at the standard that you desire, right? So then the choice comes on you as to simply accept that and then do what you need to do to move forward. So most people, that's where they try and fix it. It's like, well, they don't want to set the boundary, right? They don't want to change the dynamic. So instead, their solution is, well, if I just change them, then I don't need to set a boundary or change the dynamic.
Right.
So, and that's why I think most people go into that fixing. I want to give you advice. I want to quote, help you, even though you didn't ask for help or don't even need help, right? We just might have different ways of looking at the world or being in the world. So they it's like easier to do that instead of set the boundary, because that can be really hard to do. So I think people do that to avoid that confrontation that might happen with the boundary, or the quote fallout that might happen, right? And so they're really spending their energy on the wrong thing.
I think that the concept of boundaries can befuddle people in some way. And I know myself, I often blur boundaries, like just boundaries between clients and friends, like where I find myself a lot of times doing things for people because somebody has been my client for say 5 years and we get along really well. So now they're kind of like my friend. And so now then, when I may do more for them without like, oh, I won't bill them for that, or I won't bill them for that. And then I realize that, wait a second, now I'm creating these expectations that one day I'm going to say, I got to charge you for that. And they're going to say, well, you never charged me for that in the past. Why would you charge me now? Or how come you didn't charge them that? Not that I like share my invoices with people and say, look what I'm charging them and, compare notes. But, who knows if that situation, two people, Rochester's a small town, two people talk and they're like, hey, we did a podcast with Fitz and he charged me this. And, oh, I only paid this. Oh, well, you're his pal, So like those boundaries, and they're oftentimes over periods of time. Like when you start, there's a nice boundary. It's like you can see it, you can, it's like a fence. And then over time, it's like that fence it's like a wooden fence, and it kind of like just deteriorates.
Loses some of
it just kind of blah, and now you're like, all right, so it's not a boundary anymore. There's just like this little line that, who cares if we cross it? And that's tough. It's tough for a lot of people. And those are like the easy boundaries.
Yeah.
As opposed to some of the boundaries that you were mentioning earlier with meeting people where they are and wanting to fix them and what is your job? What is your responsibility when you're interacting with another human being? What is it that you are supposed to do?
To be yourself.
To be yourself.
To be right. Yeah.
And
like,
allow
I'm
the other
me
person.
and only me.
Right. And allow the other person to be themselves.
Exactly. Yep. And it's almost so simple that it's hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's uncomfortable because then that means we actually have to own our own emotions. And nobody wants to do that. So instead of recognizing I'm uncomfortable right now, I'm having an expectation, I'm having a need that's not being met, right? Nobody's walking around the world for the most part thinking about those things. Instead, they're like, oh, that person should be like this and this person's doing that wrong and that part, right? They're just constantly looking outward because it is way more uncomfortable to look at yourself all day.
Oh, yeah.
But when we start doing that and start flipping that and recognizing that all my anger, all my discomfort, all my whatever is coming up in me is me and my responsibility. And once I stop blaming anything on everyone else, I have the power to flip that. I have the power to change that. And I have the power to not be disturbed by what anybody else is doing. And that is inner peace. Right?
And that is the hardest freaking thing to accomplish. Like your little rant right there. And it's not really a rant. I guess rant has sort of a negative connotation. That was a soapbox.
No, it was
moment.
a rant.
It was a mic drop rant, but it was a good, helpful rant. That whole idea is so difficult. I know for myself, since I started working with you, and I actually got a great compliment from my wife the other day that said, she and the kids have noticed that I am working on my, reactivity to things. I like when my son recently, and I think all this stuff. There was a period of time where I had to get my truck fixed, and then it cost a lot of money. And then the next day my son said, I hit a deer. And, my first reaction would always been, son of a, God, I'm just fine. And it was kind of like, oh, well, are you okay? Are you okay? Is everything okay? That's too bad that you hit the deer. I'm glad you're okay. We'll get the car fixed. It's just a car. It's not great timing, and when could it ever be good timing? But and that kind of reaction is so different from how I normally would have done it. And that departure is so huge. And
Yeah.
it's been really well received in my family and has been noticed. And I'm starting to notice it. And I'm leagues away from that inner peace you talk about, but it's more peaceful.
Totally.
It's more peaceful on a daily basis when I pull myself back and say, can you control this? No. Then don't get your blood up on it. Don't get so riled up. Go put your energy towards something that you can control. And even we were just having a conversation before we started the live stream that you were making the point that it's like, take ownership of the things that you need to take ownership, because everybody loves to shift the blame. You love to shift no one ever wants to be at fault, right? I mean, it's human nature. You don't want to be the one that screwed up.
Right.
And being able to take a step back and saying, you know what? I did that wrong. I was wrong about that. I handled that inappropriately. I was too reactive. I yelled when I shouldn't have yelled, or whatever. Taking that step and being that person that can admit that stuff is just so huge. It's so, and I'm not, and that's like, it's huge for the other people who you normally would have yelled at, of course, but it's huge for yourself inside.
Yeah.
That every step toward that inner peace that you mention a lot is just it's like a 10 steps for that one step. There's all these little tiny steps to get to that one step.
Yeah, it's great. And then it becomes automatic too, right? So I just literally just take responsibility for where I'm at and move forward. So I don't get down on myself. I don't blame myself either. I'm just like, oh, that's not operating how I want it to operate, right? So what do I got to change so that it operates better, right? I just make it simple. Like, I'm not like, oh no, I made a mistake and I shouldn't have done that, and oh, I should have done this and I've just done everything wrong, right? Because then your energy just goes, right? And it's hard to move forward. So it's just like, oh yeah, things aren't operating how I want, so I'm gonna implement this, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that, and like, I have the power to change it, and just kind of focus on the now forward versus even getting in the mess of the past.
Yeah, and for me personally, I've always been the kind of person who would just incessantly beat myself up over things, to the point where it's like, wow, give yourself some grace, for the love of God. Like, like, really? You're harder on yourself than you are on anyone else, or most people are anyway. And or at least a lot of people I know. And so that idea of, wow, okay, yeah, I screwed up, but shit, I'm freaking human and I got a lot going on and whatever, it's just, it's, I love these concepts that we talk about every week. They're all so freaking simple. They're so simple. They make such common sense, but yet they're so difficult and so confusing at the same time.
Yeah. It's nuanced. I like to use that word. It's nuanced.
It's very nuanced. It's like a marriage. It's like a relationship that a lifelong relationship where you can't imagine not being with that person. And then there's sometimes where you cannot stand being with that person.
And that person is yourself.
And that person is yourself. Exactly. Exactly. You're like, well, I've heard people talk about this recently. Like, I'm taking myself out on a date. Like, I'm showing, and that's that self-care, that self-love kind of thing where it's like, I'm going to go do something nice for myself. And sure, there's a fine line between taking care of yourself and being really freaking selfish. But I think most people are aware of that line. Most people, not all people.
We'll save that whole topic for another. We can do that next week if you want.
Yeah, we're definitely going to. And this was kind of a quick and dirty thing, and more importantly, it was the idea that people should really try to meet others where they're at. And this, we see this in the news. We see this in situations with you know, like agencies and governments who are trying to work with those that have special needs, and their approach is from a fixing mindset and not from a helping mindset necessarily. And I don't think that they know that. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's
this
way
is
nuanced. Like, I could go way too long on that. And I know we need
oh
to
yes,
wrap up.
yeah, certainly. But it's just overall that concept of meeting people where they are, where they're at, you know. And of course, this is why my podcast is called Positive Blatherings, because I blather. And the whole point
and I accept you where you're at,
right,
Scott.
you accept my blathering, and that's why this works so well. And on that note, I hate to do this, but I gotta go. We gotta go. But look, I really, really appreciate this time that we have every Wednesday. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter, but I look forward to it every week. And I know that we have a handful of people that check in when we're live, and more people that check in afterwards. We appreciate you doing that. We love your input. You know, keep at it. And if one person got anything from this, then I'm happy. I know I got something from it, so I'm happy. But good. On that note, I've got to hit the music. Oh, which I didn't do. There we go. Bring up the volume. That's what helps. Anyway, Stacey Steinmiller, Radical Life Coach. She's awesome. Do yourself a favor. Invest in yourself, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Invest in yourself and hire Stacey to make you better. To better at what you do.
If you consent to it. I'm not easy.
Yes.
I won't let anything go.
She won't try to change you right away, but she's gonna meet you where you are. I think I should probably shut up now at this point. All right.
Yeah.
Bye.